Red Bull just lost over 1 full second per lap, and now Max Verstappen himself has stepped in to fix a car he says is impossible to drive. Because this isn't just a performance drop. This is a car that's up to 20 kilograms overweight. A chassis responsible for nearly 80% of the total deficit. And a system so broken, the team doesn't even trust its own data anymore. A rookie from their junior team knocked out a 4-time world champion. 32 seconds lost in a single race. And for the first time, Red Bull's leadership is being forced to react. Mekies is making emergency decisions. Verstappen is influencing the technical direction. And everything now depends on one massive gamble. Because what you're about to hear reveals how Red Bull went from total dominance to complete crisis, and why this next move could decide if they recover or collapse completely. At first, Red Bull thought they could manage it. A few adjustments, a better setup, maybe a small upgrade between races. Because that's what dominant teams do when something feels off. They correct it, quietly, efficiently, and move on. But this time, nothing responded. Melbourne exposed the first cracks. Not just in lap time, but in behavior. The RB22 didn't react like a Red Bull. It didn't rotate properly. It didn't hold balance through corners. It didn't give the driver confidence. And still, the team believed it was something minor. Something fixable. Until they saw something that should never happen. Their own junior team, faster. Same engine. Less budget. Less experience. And yet, half a second ahead. That's not a setup issue. That's a structural problem. And that's when the internal alarm started. Because in Formula 1, when two cars share the same power unit, the difference comes from one place. The chassis. And suddenly, all eyes turned there. Because the RB22 wasn't just slow. It was inefficient. Heavy. Up to 20 kilograms over the limit. That alone explains up to 7/10 per lap lost. Before you even talk about aerodynamics. Before you even look at balance. The car was already compromised. And it gets worse. Because that weight wasn't placed correctly. To meet regulations, the team had to add ballast in the wrong areas. Which destroyed the balance. Front end weak in slow corners. Rear end unstable in high speed. A car that changes personality, corner to corner. And that's exactly what Verstappen felt. Not just lack of speed. Lack of control. Because when a driver enters a corner, they expect consistency. Same input. Same response. But with the RB22, that response kept changing. And that's when confidence disappears. And without confidence, even the fastest driver becomes limited. But here's where the situation becomes critical. Because the engineers tried to fix it. They adjusted suspension, tweaked aerodynamics, changed setup direction, and nothing worked consistently. One session, slightly better. Next session, completely different again. And that inconsistency is the biggest warning sign of all. Because it points to something deeper. Not a part, not a setting. The entire concept. And that's the moment everything shifts inside a team. Because now, you're not asking how to improve. You're asking if the car is even right. And that's exactly the question Red Bull started asking after China. Because that's where the second hit came. Reliability. The ERS failure. Complete loss of electrical power. And in this generation of Formula 1, that's half the performance gone instantly. But even that failure revealed something bigger. The cooling system was already at its limit. Running too close. Too aggressive. And when they tried to fix it, they added more cooling. Which added more weight, which made the balance worse. Every solution, creating a new problem. And that's when the situation becomes unsustainable. Because now, you're not improving the car. You're fighting it. And that's exactly where Verstappen stepped in. Because at this point, driver feedback wasn't enough. Now, it had to guide the direction. Because the tools weren't reliable. The wind tunnel didn't match reality. The simulations couldn't predict behavior. So the only truth left was the track. And what the driver feels. And that changes everything. Because now, Red Bull is no longer developing like a dominant team. They're reacting. Using real-world data. Building understanding, from scratch. In the middle of a season. Against teams that are already ahead. And that's why Mekies had to act. Because this wasn't just about speed anymore. It was about control. Control of development. Control of decisions. Control of the direction. And without that, the season doesn't just slip away. It collapses. So now, everything leads to one moment. One massive intervention. One upgrade package designed not just to improve the RB22, but to save it. And what happens next will decide if Red Bull can recover, or if this crisis goes even deeper than anyone expected. And this is where the response from Red Bull becomes something we almost never see from a dominant team. Because this isn't a normal upgrade cycle. This is an emergency rebuild. In the middle of the season. Under pressure. With no guarantee it will work. Everything now points to Miami. Not just as another race, but as the moment where Red Bull either regains control or confirms the collapse. Because the package they're bringing is not small. It's not incremental. It's massive. The biggest development push of their entire season. And every part of it targets a different failure. First, the weight. Up to 20 kilograms too heavy. That alone, costing them as much as 7/10 per lap. So they're stripping the car down. Lighter materials. Reworked components. A completely revised cooling system. Trying to remove every unnecessary gram. But here's the problem. Weight is not just about being lighter. It's about where that weight sits. And that's the second change. Redistribution. Because the RB22 didn't just carry extra weight. It carried it in the wrong places. Destroying balance. So now, with a lighter car, they can finally place that mass where it actually helps performance. And that leads to the third change. The floor. The most important aerodynamic part of a modern Formula One car. Completely redesigned. Not based on wind tunnel predictions, but based on real track data. Australia, China, Japan, all combined. For the first time, Red Bull is building an upgrade from reality, not simulation. And that alone tells you how serious the situation is. Because when a team abandons its tools, it's not by choice. It's because they have no other option. But it doesn't stop there. Because the fourth change targets the balance directly. A revised rear suspension. New geometry. Designed to eliminate that impossible behavior Verstappen described. The understeer in slow corners. The sudden oversteer in fast ones. The instability that makes the car unpredictable. The goal is simple. Not perfection. Stability. A car that behaves the same way, every lap. Because without that, nothing else matters. And finally, the front end. A new front wing. More downforce. More grip. Trying to give the driver something he hasn't had all season. Confidence on entry. Because that's where every corner begins. And that's where the RB22 has been failing the most. So when you put it all together, this isn't just an upgrade. It's a transformation. Weight. Balance. Aerodynamics. Suspension. Everything touched. Everything changed. And all of it arriving at once. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous. Because when you change everything at once, you don't get clear answers. You get a result. Good or bad. And that result defines everything. Because even inside Red Bull, expectations are controlled. Carefully. Mekies already said it. This won't be a miracle. Just a step. A step forward. But here's the reality. A step might not be enough. Because when you're 1 second behind, you don't need a step. You need a leap. And that's exactly what this package is trying to achieve. But here's the real tension. What if it doesn't work? Because if Miami fails, there is no second reset. No bigger package coming. No hidden solution. Just the confirmation that the RB22 cannot be fully saved. And that's when everything changes. Because at that point, the focus shifts. From fixing the present, to protecting the future. From chasing the season, to preparing the next one. And that decision is the one no team wants to make. But every team eventually faces. So now, everything comes down to one moment. One weekend. One answer. Because Miami won't just show if Red Bull is faster. It will show if Mekies and Verstappen's intervention actually worked. Or if this crisis has already gone too far. And this is where the real decision begins. Because after Miami, Red Bull is forced to confront something much bigger than performance. They have to decide what this season actually is. A recovery, or a write-off. Because if the RB22 shows clear improvement, if the gap drops from 1 second to half a second, that changes everything. It means the concept can be saved. It means the direction is finally correct. It means Verstappen can fight again. Not dominate, but compete. And in Formula One, that's enough to rebuild momentum. But if the improvement is small, 0.2, 0.3, that's not progress. That's confirmation. Confirmation that the problem is deeper. That the car cannot reach the front, no matter what they change. And that's where the hardest call comes in. Because at that point, continuing to develop the RB22 becomes a risk. Every upgrade, every hour in the wind tunnel, every resource spent, is time taken away from the next car. The one that actually matters. The one that could reset everything. And this is where the internal tension reaches its peak. Because there are now two paths. Keep fighting. Or move on. Keep pushing updates. Trying to extract performance from a flawed concept. Hoping something clicks. Or accept reality. Shift focus. And build a completely new foundation for the future. And neither option is easy. Because if they keep fighting, they risk falling further behind long term. But if they give up too early, they lose the season completely. And for a team like Red Bull, that's not just a sporting decision. That's a statement. Because this is a team that dominated Formula One. A team that didn't just win, but controlled everything. And now, they're deciding whether to stop fighting halfway through the season. That's how serious this crisis is. But here's the final layer. The one that connects everything. Because this decision doesn't just affect development. It affects people. Because if the RB22 cannot be saved, then the question becomes unavoidable. Who is responsible? Because in Formula One, performance and leadership are always connected. And right now, all of it points back to one place. The technical direction. The decisions behind the chassis. The philosophy of the car. And ultimately, Pierre Waché. Because this is his project. His concept. His responsibility. And if the car cannot recover, then the pressure doesn't just stay. It escalates. Internally. Silently. But powerfully. Because teams don't accept this kind of drop without consequences. Not after years of dominance. Not after setting the standard for the entire sport. So now, everything is connected. The performance in Miami. The development direction. The future of the RB22. And the stability of the technical leadership. All decided by what happens next. Because this is no longer just about being too slow. It's about whether Red Bull still knows how to be fast. And if they don't find that answer soon, then this isn't just a crisis. It's the moment their entire era starts to come to an end.